Hello there, Shortcuts. This is Stephen here. We are up to our first list for the month of March. Shortcuts coming to you with something I've never done before. So more about that in a second. For those of you who are new, all of the records you're about to see will go on a price list that will be published at 9 p.m. Sydney time this Wednesday, March 5th. If you would like to be on that mailing list, just drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com, or put a comment and I'll respond and we'll work it out. This is my first ever complete heavy metal / heavy rock list. This is unapologetically the most expensive list I've ever put together. There are some genuine outstanding rarities here, and I'm just going to put it out there. The last record in this list has something in it that I have never seen before, and I know the Japanese have done pretty astounding things, but this record takes the cake. So I'm just going to put that teaser there, and I'm going to leave it for you to percolate, and we'll get to it. So this is heavy metal classics. I have distilled down in this list the best heavy metal and heavy rock records I think I have ever had in my collection. And a lot of this is in preparation for my record fair, which is on the 16th of March at the Hotel Stain at 11 p.m. That's a Sunday, 11 a.m. It's a Sunday. I'm going to be giving away free prizes. There's going to be some amazing sellers there. Please come along if you're in the area. But what these records will be at that fair, but I'm going to give a discounted price to this club ahead of what they'll be in the crates at the fair. That's the best I can do. There are some unbelievable records here, as you are about to see. How to start this was ridiculous, but I've settled on this record. This is the Japanese. These, by the way, every one of these are either Japanese or UK or Canadian first press. This is the Japanese first press of The Number of the Beast, Iron Maiden's 1982 album. This point, they had built up a following. By the way, all of these are in immaculate condition. And wait till you see some of the extras that sit alongside some of these records. I mean, Iron Maiden led the way in many respects of the new wave of British heavy metal, as we know. But the songwriting on Number of the Beast, I think, is the reason why, in some respects, it's held in a different light to some of the other Maiden records. The dual guitar harmonies are always, a delight to hear. These Japanese presses, I got 4 Maiden records in a row here just to set the scene. My gosh, the quality of the vinyl, the way that it sounds, how warm and full it feels compared to the digitized versions. The legacy of these records is really quite astounding. I mean, I don't think that they have to be the most influential metal band of the 80s, surely. Anyway, look, the whole religious side of this is kind of funny. I'm not even going to go there. The Number of the Beast, you got all sorts of funny stuff going on. But, let's just say, let's just call out some of these tracks. Actually, maybe even Hollow by Thy Name, brilliant. But Run to the Hills has to be in the list of the greatest metal songs ever. It was produced by Martin Birch, who'd kind of worked with bands like Deep Purple, but interestingly, Fleetwood Mac. So there is a commerciality here that kind of works. And then you've got Bruce Dickinson. It's just an amazing thing. Had to lead off with it. So an absolutely pristine copy of The Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden. First of four. Next, this one has a killer poster. And that is a terrible pun. Because this is Maiden's second album, Killers. This was their last record with, what was he called? Paul Dano? Pretty sure that's his name. This is the punkiest record that Iron Maiden ever did. And in some ways, that's why I think it's my favorite Iron Maiden record. It is relentless. It is riff-driven. It is completely kinetic energy. Wrathchild, Murders in the Rue Morgue, I love all of them. There's a little bit more of Paul Dano to come because of his popularity in Japan. They did something there that wasn't done anywhere else. So you'll hear about that in a couple of records. I know this is viewed as transitional, etc., and it's not Bruce, but I love it. I think it's great. Again, Japanese first press, but this is the special edition that has this poster. And so I'm just going to prep this because it's so monumentally silly. Look at this. How fabulous is that? So this is, showing you that the Eddie stagecraft was still very much in play in the very early doors. And this is the back side of the lyric sheet. Anyway, fantastic. First press with poster. First time I've ever seen that. I did mention that the Japanese had a little bit extra. So this is a Japanese only release. I think it's been released since then. But from what I read in the blogs, and obviously listening digitally as well, this Heavy Metal Army pressing is by far the best sound. It's surprisingly good for what's often considered to be a little bit of a kind of bootleg style record. Running Free, Remember Tomorrow, Killers, Innocent Exile, as it says on the back, 45 RPM, play loud. I completely agree. This was recorded on their world tour prior to them recording Number of the Beast. I mean, it says at the bottom here, this record is dedicated to all the headbangers, earth dogs, and metal merchants around the world. Thanks for making our first world tour such a success. There is rumors that an official live album was sanctioned, but because of what happened with Paul Dano and, Bruce Dickinson, maybe it was shelved. I have one more here that I want to show you. This is the record that competes in my mind with Killers as Maiden's best record. Obviously, they cemented themselves as, maybe the best or maybe the top metal band in the world by the time you get to Somewhere in Time, 1986. Now, this sleeve has Easter eggs pointing to all of the previous album sleeves in ways that are really quite subtle and often delightful. So it is well worth sitting and having a little stare at what's going on in this. For example, there is the clock saying 23:58, which of course is 2 minutes to midnight. Those of you who are Maiden fans are nodding along. There's a lot of this type of stuff in here. This is often referred to as their prog record, and certainly it has a different feel. I mean, they had a monster tour just before this record, the World Slavery Tour, which was in celebration of Power Slave, another record that a lot of people have, a lot of time for. But this is really their first major departure from a particular sound since Killers. And it was commercially really successful. All of the records were. But I think it remains a kind of unique experience just because of that kind of prog nature. Still produced by Martin Birch, who's, pretty amazing at this stuff. The legacy of Summer in Time is a bit different, though. Definitely more of a forward-thinking record. Well worth digging into, and includes Wasted Years, that is kind of a bit of a classic, and is one of their few records that doesn't really change or songs that doesn't really change pace, doesn't have a thing. It's just killer. All right, I think it's time for something a little bit different. By the way, I need to double check, but I'm pretty sure that's a Canadian first press of that. Now I have something very different. About a year or so ago, and some of you will have heard this in a previous video a few weeks back, the BBC started selling off their reference library of vinyl. It's called the Gramophone. Let me get the exact name for you because it's written right here. The BBC Gramophone Library. And I was lucky enough to pick up a box of records that the BBC held that were all preview presses sent to the BBC of records on the Atco label. And so let me just pull this out before I reveal what this record is, because this was in the crate kind of blew my mind. So there's Atco. This is the first press, UK Europe, of Cowboys from Hell by Pantera. Now you will see the stamp that says Gramophone Library BBC. So this record looks to me almost completely unplayed. It plays perfectly. And because it was an Atco release, it ends up in the BBC's archive. Now, what the BBC did were they put all of these types of single records in these long use kind of I don't know, like sleeves. You can't get it out. And also on the back, written on the sleeves, you can. These are actually on the kind of outside, almost. What's the right word? It'll come to me. But you can see the stickers and stuff. But also here you can see who took the record out and in what dates and when it was left back, etc. It's a very unique thing. So the BBC's reference copy of Cowboys from Hell by Pantera. Now, Pantera been around for years before this record came out, but this is the one that kind of blew them open. It's kind of what became a kind of subgenre called groove metal, and this is because it isn't quite as heavy as some of the other bands that were around at the time. The grooves make it far more accessible, and I think that's why the kind of mixture of the razor sharp riffs, the incredible drumming, Phil Anselmo's voice, even though very aggressive, very versatile, and very interesting, kind of made this a bit of a monumental record. And so I'll be very curious to hear if any of you want to kind of dig into what this is and, what it might be. Very hard to price these things. The fact of it is, it cost me a lot of money to buy this box. And so I was hoping that there would be some gold in there. I think this is the goldest of gold nuggets that's in there, though, without any question. The original vinyl also has a quite different mix to later. So one of my friends brought round a repress version when he saw that I had this, and it sounds very different and nowhere near as good. I mean, he was, I wonder whether he'll even bother listening to that record again. It's got Cemetery Gates on it too, which is a very unique take on a metal ballad. Very, very cool. And so, yeah, very different. As I mentioned, some killer things in here. Talking about killer, what about this? This is Megadeth. This is their debut album, Killing Is My Business, and Business Is Good. But this is not just any old version. There's the inside. This is the sleeve. You will see here it says special limited edition Metal Master double album includes free poster. So we'll come to that. So this is 2 times 45 RPM, UK only release on the Music for Nations label, which is also the label that produced the 45 RPM takes of Metallica, Master of Puppets, Lightning for All, Ride the Lightning, that are still by a mile the best sounding versions of those records, bar none, in my view, particularly Master of Puppets. So I was pretty excited to see that they did a 42 times 45 RPM take on Megadeth, but also includes this rather and very typically rude Megadeth poster. There you go. Get your grenades and your guns out. Megadeth wanting to shock. I guess Dave Mustaine still pretty sore after what happened to him, or what he thought was done to him by the lovely folks in Metallica. And so very, very, very unusual record and rare record to see in Australia. I think, they didn't have a great budget for this record, and you can kind of tell it's very speedy, kind of compositionally complex, and kind of messing around with a lot of things. But it has become, I think, over the years, more of a cult classic. Obviously, some of the later Megadeth records have more commerciality and not quite as thrashy, but it's got something. The remix versions by Mustaine that were a bit later, I'm really sure they made much of a difference. The record is what it is. And so it's got some controversial record or songs like These Boots, etc. But, that's what he was aiming for. So there it is. It's but the 45 RPM cut means that because a lot of these records at that time, particularly these thrash records, were reasonably long, it's cut loud. And that really makes a difference. Holy God, my missus hates that record. I put it on this afternoon. She was like, what the hell are you doing? Oh my God, I think this might end up being my longest video. And you know what? I don't care. I think it's worth it. All right. A little bit of a change of tack. This is the Japanese first press with Obi of Born Again, the Led Zeppelin, the Black Sabbath record from 1983 that heralded Ian Gillan into the band as the lead singer. Kind of almost always makes me laugh that he said he was so drunk at the time he didn't remember agreeing to do the record. But I'm glad he did. It's very different Sabbath record. Still has heavy riffs, but the atmosphere, the vibe of this thing is so sludgy and dirgy and turgid. I think that whilst, the first 5 or 6 Sabbath records are probably unequaled, this one sits there in that second tier, kind of poking up, going, look at me. I think it's a really interesting and involving record. It's way, way better than its reputation. I don't know what the reviews were at the time. I might go and do a little bit of a check, but I'm pretty sure that it wasn't, that well regarded. But that sleeve is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Surely one of the greatest metal sleeves of all time. There's another sleeve controversy to come before we leave. I'm going to kind of transition a little bit again, still moving into the 70s this time, though, more kind of heavy rock than heavy metal. This is Rainbow Rising by Rainbow. Richie Blackmore's band that he put together after leaving Deep Purple. I don't know, how many times did he leave Deep Purple? This is maybe the first. But then he went and produced probably one of the greatest hard rock albums that ever was. And so, kudos to him. I mean, Ronnie James Dio on vocals, who of course had his own stint in Sabbath with Heaven and Hell in particular being lauded to the heavens. But Rainbow Rising is heavily influenced by Led Zeppelin. The musicianship is very similar to where Jimmy Page was going at the time. A song like Stargazer, you listen to Stargazer and tell me in some ways that it isn't like the great lost Zeppelin track in a funny way. It's really cool. Obviously, Ronnie James Dio's ridiculous vocalist. It's mastering on this thing is outrageous. Man, oh my God, does it sound good. And, I think this is the reason why a lot of these Japanese presses are so expensive and so sought after. The sound quality is stellar, guys, honestly. I have to bring in the 45 RPM cuts from, the UK in 1988 to compete because, the Aussie stuff just sounds underwater compared to these. It's pretty great. Now, I also want to show you that this very rare poster came with this. Again, fully complete, this time with a poster of Ritchie Blackmore himself. I mean, you will never see a better copy of this record. It is stunning. And it's a great, great album. Cozy Powell on drums, Ritchie Blackmore, oh man, ridiculous. All right, this next record is also from 1976, more controversial than Rainbow Rising because of the sleeve. This is one of the times when I'm very relieved that the Obi is on this record. This is the Japanese first press with Obi of Virgin Killer by the Scorpions. Now, for those of you who don't know, what resides under that Obi is pretty shocking. And, you get the band at the back kind of laughing. I don't understand it. It was banned just about everywhere other than Japan. And Japan even went one further. They made the most audiophile version of this record. They used super high quality vinyl. They pressed it using, I think, a lot of the Dynaflex tech on the RCA label. Another twin guitar kind of relentless thing. That 70s vibe of Lizzie, Rainbow, the Scorpions. Kind of, you've got, what was he called? Uli Roth, their guitarist. He led the charge, and he was pretty special. And this record probably would have been, I don't know, would it have done better if it wasn't so controversial in the sleeve? If you really want to know what it looks like under there, go and dig it up. It will shock you. It shocks me still to this day. But I think, in some respects, it hinders what is a genuinely enjoyable record. And so many people have called out Uli John Roth's guitar playing is influencing on you, Maelstrom and others, but it's great. The Japanese press of Virgin Killer, though, is amazing. I guess if you want to have this artifact as the band wanted it to be, then that is what it is. Yeah, amazing. I have two other Scorpions records. I'm not going to spend as much time on them. That's 1982's Black Out, and again with Obi in absolutely as perfect as you can imagine condition. I can't say mint because they've been played, but genuinely these are in incredible condition. And this is probably my favorite Scorpions record. This is Taken by Force, the last of the records with legendary guitarist Uli John Roth. I think this is one of the great guitar records. It's very underrated and very, 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 very good. Okay, I have one more before I get on to my little special story of something the Japanese did, which is genuinely absolutely brilliant. All right, before I do that though, I wanted to find a heavy record from the 60s to put into the mix here. I almost made it. In fact, I'm going to claim it because the record was recorded in 69, but it was released in 1970, and it is Very Heavy by the mighty Uriah Heep. Now, what a gatefold this is. Look at that. It's still so disturbing to this day. There's the inside. You have the debut album by The Heap. Very heavy, very humble, with the English lyrics, as was the Japanese one. And this is the first press on the original bronze label. Now here you have kind of blues-based British kind of heavy rock. Again, you know, you can't listen to this without kind of replaying a little bit of Zeppelin in your head. It's become a cult favorite. Uriah Heep had much more success afterwards, of course. Influenced a whole bunch of bands on the way to progressive rock and eventually to doom metal, because there's elements of this that are really, you know, fairly caustic in a kind of early 60s or late 60s, 70s way as well. Kind of much more surprising. I really like it. It's one of my favorite records on the list. I always loved the Hammond organ. I often thought it might influence Mr. Lord on Deep Purple, but I haven't heard that confirmed. But it's fun. It's fun. One early review of the record I found in my research that kind of fun, kind of made me giggle was, I think it was a critic, I can't remember who it was, but he said something like, if this band makes it, I have to go kill myself. And then they did, and I always wondered, how did he go with that? All right, I'm going to talk about this record now. You'll be surprised when you see what it is in terms of what the record is, but what the gimmick is here is, it's absolutely amazing. All right, it is the Motley Crue record from 1985, The Theatre of Pain. The successor to Shout at the Devil, which was pretty dark and gnarly. This one's a little bit more glam, and you can kind of tell a little bit on the back here. Has some of their biggest hits. Home Sweet Home, for example, and others. And it's, you know, a pretty fine example of this kind of genre from the mid-80s. And inside, it has several things that are quite cool. It's got this little mini poster of the band, and it has the story of the record. It also has this. So, you open this up, and this is what it looks like on the outside. You can see this. It says hard rock, and I had to go and translate this because there's very little literature on it. It talks about that this is a quiz record. So inside the first release in Japan of Theatre of Pain is this. It is a little kind of almost acetate of a vinyl, and it only plays on one side. And what you get are snippets of songs from various bands. I'm going to read them out. Rat, Motley Crue, AC/DC, Raven, Dokken, Vandenberg, some others. And what you had to do was answer what band was on the acetate in order, and then you could kind of snip this off and post this off. You put this in the post. There's the address, and you put your home return address, etc. And if you got it right, they sent you a poster. Now, of course, I don't have the poster because this person, whoever they were, didn't do that, but kept the acetate in perfect condition. I love that. I just think that is amazing. There's the album. Man, is it pristine. Look at that. On the original Elektra label, of course, famously, Motley were Elektra. So there you have it. There are others that are in the crates that are going to be, I've got like Japanese Blizzard of Oz, more Motley Crue, etc. But that's what's going to be on the list. My longest video, unapologetic, because what a list of records that is. If you would like to be on the price list, drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. Please comment. Let me know what you think of this list of the Motley, the Scorpions, the Sabbath, the Maiden, the Rainbow, Uriah Heep, and all. If you made it this far, thank you. Please like, share, comment, all that stuff makes this worthwhile. And if you want to be on the list, as I said, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. Thank you. Bye.